An illicit romance ends in betrayal. But when the butler returns, the billionaire finds herself caught in a web of revenge and secrets. And if you cherish your family and love videos like this, subscribe to our channel to have 10 years of luck in your life. The marble floors of the steel mansion echoed with Madison's determined footsteps as she walked through the grand hallway. Her assistant had just delivered the news about Jamal's betrayal, complete with surveillance photos showing him meeting secretly with Veronica Hayes. Madison's hands trembled as she held the manila envelope containing the evidence, her usual composure cracking under the weight of this revelation. She found Jamal in the library, meticulously arranging fresh flowers in a crystal vase, a daily routine he'd maintained for the past 5 years. Without warning, Madison threw the envelope onto the mahogany desk between them. The photos spilled out, showing Jamal and Veronica in animated conversation at a downtown cafe. "How long?" Madison demanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "How long have you been feeding information to Veronica Hayes?" Jamal straightened his posture, setting down the flowers with practiced precision. His dark suit, perfectly tailored as always, seemed to tighten around him as he faced his employer. 3 months, he answered, maintaining eye contact. Madison pressed her palms against the cool surface of the desk. 3 months of what, exactly? Sharing my schedule? My business plans? Or perhaps details about my personal life? The relationship between Madison and Jamal had begun 2 years ago, during a late night when she'd found him working well past his duties, reorganizing her extensive art collection. Their conversation that night had stretched for hours, touching on everything from Renaissance painters to modern architecture. One conversation led to another, and soon their professional boundaries blurred into something more intimate. "It wasn't like that," Jamal protested, taking a step forward. "Madison, you have to understand." "Understand what?" She cut him off. "That while I trusted you with every aspect of my life, you were planning your exit strategy. That while I was sharing my bed with you, you were sharing my secrets with my biggest rival." The air in the library grew thick with tension as memories of their relationship flashed through Madison's mind. Private dinners in the garden, whispered conversations in the early morning hours, the way he'd hold her hand during difficult business calls. Each memory now felt tainted, corrupted by betrayal. Outside the library windows, storm clouds gathered, matching the darkness of the moment. Jamal moved around the desk, reaching for Madison, but she stepped back, maintaining the distance between them. "I made choices," he said, his voice low and controlled. "Choices that you might not understand now, but get out." Madison interrupted, her voice ice cold. "Pack your things and leave. You'll receive your final payment by wire transfer." As Jamal left the library, his footsteps heavy with resignation, Madison watched him go. She noticed how his shoulders slumped slightly, breaking his usually perfect posture. For a moment, she thought he might turn back, might try to explain one more time, but he continued walking. In his quarters above the garage, Jamal methodically packed his belongings. Each item he placed in his suitcase represented a memory. The cufflinks Madison had given him for Christmas, the books they discussed during their late-night conversations, the tie she'd adjusted countless times before important events. His hands lingered on each piece, weighing not just their physical presence, but the memories attached to them. He paused at his desk, looking at the documents that had led him to this moment. Veronica Hayes' business proposal lay open, promising him a position that would elevate him far beyond his role as a butler. The opportunity to prove himself in the corporate world, to be more than just household staff, had been too tempting to resist. As he closed his suitcase, Jamal glanced out the window at Madison's office. The light was still on, and he could see her silhouette pacing back and forth. He knew she was probably already planning her next moves, strategizing how to minimize the damage he might have caused. That was who she was, always thinking ahead, always in control. The rain started falling as Jamal walked to his car, each drop feeling like another accusation. He had made his choice, chosen ambition over love, and now he would have to live with the consequences. As he drove through the elaborate gates of the Steele estate for the last time, he was already formulating his own plans. He would prove to Madison, to himself, and to the world that he was capable of being more than just a butler in love with his employer. He would make his mark in the business world, even if it meant becoming her enemy in the process. 5 years passed, marked by Madison's relentless focus on expanding her business empire. The Meridian Hotel's conference center buzzed with anticipation as investors and business leaders gathered for the annual Technology Innovation Summit. Madison stood at the podium, commanding attention in her tailored black suit, presenting quarterly projections that showed consistent growth despite market volatility. And with our new artificial intelligence integration, we're projecting a 40% increase in efficiency across all operational sectors, Madison announced, her voice carrying across the packed room. She noticed several investors leaning forward in their seats, clearly impressed by the numbers. From the corner of her eye, she caught movement at the back of the room. Veronica Hayes had just entered, fashionably late as usual. Madison's grip on the podium tightened imperceptibly. Veronica's company had been aggressively moving into the same markets as Steel Industries, often with suspiciously similar strategies. Veronica took a seat in the front row, her red dress a stark contrast to the sea of dark suits. Her smile held that same predatory edge Madison had come to recognize over years of competition. But it wasn't Veronica's presence that caused Madison's heart to skip a beat. It was the figure who followed her into the room. Jamal Carter walked in, dressed in an impeccable suit that spoke of success and influence. He wasn't wearing a butler's uniform anymore. This was the attire of a corporate executive. He carried himself differently now, with the confidence of someone who had climbed the corporate ladder through ambition and cunning. Madison forced herself to continue her presentation, even as her mind raced with questions. The PowerPoint slides advanced automatically as she spoke about market penetration and growth strategies, but her attention kept drifting to Jamal, who had taken a position standing just behind Veronica's chair. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Jamal had gone from serving Madison to serving her greatest rival. "Are there any questions?" Madison asked as she concluded her presentation. Several hands rose, but Veronica's shot up first. Madison nodded in her direction, bracing herself. "Fascinating projections, Madison." Veronica's voice dripped with false sweetness. "But I couldn't help noticing they're remarkably similar to the strategy my company implemented last quarter. Perhaps you'd like to explain the coincidence?" The room fell silent. Medicine mit Veronica steadily. Great minds think alike, Veronica, though some of us prefer to innovate rather than imitate. Her eyes flickered briefly to Jamal, whose expression remained carefully neutral. After the presentation, Madison retreated to a private conference room, needing a moment to collect herself. Through the glass walls, she could see Veronica working the room, Jamal by her side, speaking confidently to potential investors. The sight made her stomach turn. Her assistant entered with a tablet, showing headlines from the business news. Hayes Industries announces major expansion into AI market. The timing wasn't coincidental. Veronica was making her move, and she brought Jamal along as her secret weapon. Madison's phone buzzed with messages from board members, all expressing concern about Veronica's aggressive market position. She responded to each one with assured confidence, even as her mind worked through various scenarios. Having Jamal on Veronica's side wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It was a strategic threat. He knew too much about her business practices, her decision-making processes, her strengths and weaknesses. Standing at the window overlooking the city skyline, Madison made a decision. She wouldn't let Veronica and Jamal's presence throw her off course. She had built her empire through intelligence, determination, and an unwavering will to succeed. If they wanted a fight, she would give them one they wouldn't forget. She pulled out her phone and dialed her legal team. "I want every contract, every deal, every interaction with Hayes Industries scrutinized," she ordered. "And get me everything you can on Jamal Carter's current position in her company. We're not playing defense anymore." As she ended the call, Madison caught her reflection in the window. She saw what everyone else in that conference room saw. A woman who had fought her way to the top and wasn't about to be displaced by betrayal or corporate warfare. If Veronica thought bringing Jamal into her company would give her an advantage, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The stage was set for a corporate battle that would test not just business acumen, but personal resolve. Madison straightened her jacket, checked her appearance one last time, and prepared to return to the conference floor. She had built her empire once. She would protect it now, no matter the cost. The corner cafe on Fifth Avenue provided a stark contrast to the corporate battlegrounds Madison usually occupied. Sunlight streamed through large windows, creating warm patches on the polished wooden tables where Madison sat across from Sarah Mitchell, her closest friend of 15 years. Sarah's presence had always served as a grounding force in Madison's life, especially during times of turmoil. "You should have seen their faces," Madison said, stirring her untouched coffee. The entire boardroom went silent when Jamal walked in behind Veronica, like they were watching some sort of corporate soap opera unfold. Sarah leaned forward, her journalist's instincts evident in her focused expression. "And you're certain he's not just there as a regular employee? This has to be strategic on Veronica's part." "Jamal doesn't do anything without calculation," Madison replied, her voice bitter with experience. 5 years ago, he was planning his move to her company while sharing my bed. Now he's her right-hand man, coincidentally, just as Hayes Industries starts moving into all our markets. The cafe buzzed with morning activity around them, but their corner booth remained a bubble of privacy. Sarah watched her friend carefully, noting the subtle signs of stress that others might miss. The slight tension in Madison's shoulders, the way she kept checking her phone even though she knew no urgent messages were waiting. "I've got my own mess to deal with," Sarah said suddenly, changing the subject. "Richard's lawyers are demanding access to my trust fund as part of the divorce settlement. They're claiming since I used some of it to support his startup, he's entitled to a portion." Madison's attention immediately shifted from her own problems. "He's what? After everything he did?" The revelation about Richard's affair with his young assistant had rocked their social circle 6 months ago. "Apparently, sleeping with your assistant doesn't negate financial claims," Sarah said with a hollow laugh. "The irony is I kept telling Missile, if I was investing in our future together. Now he'll probably use that money to buy her a house." Madison reached across the table, squeezing her friend's hand. "Use my legal team. They'll shut this down before it gets any further. Richard doesn't deserve a cent of your family's money." The conversation shifted between personal and professional concerns, two women supporting each other through their respective crises. Sarah's journalism background kicked in as they discussed strategy. "You need to think like Veronica," Sarah suggested, pushing aside her half-eaten croissant. "She brought Jamal in for maximum psychological impact, but there has to be more to it. What else does she gain besides insider knowledge?" Madison considered this, her business mind engaging despite her emotional turmoil. "Credibility for one thing. Jamal knows every detail of how I built my company. He can help her replicate my success while making it look original." "Then maybe it's time to change the game entirely," Sarah proposed, her eyes lighting up with an idea. "Instead of defending against their moves, what if you pivoted into new territory? Something they couldn't anticipate because it's not in your usual playbook?" The suggestion hung in the air between them, sparking possibilities in Madison's mind. She pulled out her tablet, quickly pulling up market analysis reports. "There are emerging markets we haven't touched yet, areas where neither Veronica nor Jamal would have any insight into my approach." Sarah watched her friend's energy shift from defensive to strategic. "You've always been best when you're innovating, not reacting. Remember when you first started? Everyone said a woman couldn't succeed in that market, and you proved them wrong." Their conversation was interrupted by a call from Sarah's lawyer, forcing her to step outside to take it. Madison watched through the window as her friend paced on the sidewalk, clearly agitated by whatever she was hearing. It struck her then how their situations paralleled each other, both dealing with betrayals, both fighting to protect what they'd built. When Sarah returned, her face was flushed with anger. "Richard's lawyers are playing hardball. They're threatening to drag this out for years if I don't agree to their terms." Madison's response was immediate and firm. "Then we fight back. You've supported me through everything. Now it's my turn. We'll use my resources, my connections. Richard won't know what hit him." As they prepared to leave the cafe, both women had found new resolve through their shared understanding and support. Madison had come seeking comfort about Jamal's reappearance, but left with the beginnings of a new strategy. Sarah had arrived worried about her divorce, but departed with a powerful ally in her corner. "We should do this more often," Sarah said as they stepped onto the busy sidewalk. Regular strategy sessions. God knows we both need them. Madison nodded, already mentally listing potential markets to explore. Next time my office. We'll need the whiteboard for what I'm planning. They parted ways, each heading back to their respective battles, but stronger for having shared their burdens. Madison's driver held the car door open for her, and as she settled into the leather seat, she began making calls. Sarah was right. It was time to change the game entirely. The private dining room at Le Cirque hummed with quiet conversation and the subtle clink of fine china. Madison had chosen this venue for its discretion and the fact that it was far from Veronica's usual haunts. Around the elegantly set table sat 5 of the most influential investors in the tech sector, each representing potential billions in investment capital. James Chun, CEO of Nova Ventures, leaned forward with interest. Your proposal for expanding into quantum computing is intriguing, Madison, but the timeline seems aggressive, especially given Hayes Industries' recent movements in the market. Madison noted, Veronica and Jamal dining in the main restaurant, their presence too convenient to be coincidental. She kept her attention focused on her guests, even as she felt Jamal's occasional glances in her direction. The timeline is ambitious because the opportunity is immediate, Madison replied, sliding detailed projections across the table. While our competitors are focused on conventional AI integration, we've been developing proprietary quantum algorithms that could revolutionize data processing. From his position at a corner table, Jamal watched the interaction with barely concealed frustration. He knew Madison's tells, the slight tilt of her head, the way she gestured with her right hand when making key points. She was planning something big. Catherine Morrison, a veteran venture capitalist, studied the numbers with keen interest. These projections assume significant market penetration within the first year. What makes you so confident? Because we've already completed successful pilot programs with 3 major tech firms, Madison revealed, producing confidentiality agreements for signing. The results exceeded even our optimistic projections by 40%. The investors exchanged impressed looks. This was the kind of concrete evidence they needed. As they reviewed the documentation, Bernard Walsh, the oldest and most conservative of the group, cleared his throat. There's another aspect we should discuss, he said, glancing meaningfully at Veronica's table. Your former employee's current position with your competitor raises concerns about intellectual property protection. Madison had anticipated this. Every aspect of our quantum computing initiative was developed after Jamal's departure. We have complete documentation of the development timeline, and our legal team has already filed the necessary patents. The conversation shifted to technical details, but Madison's mind worked on multiple levels. She noticed how Veronica seemed to be straining to overhear their discussion, how Jamal's posture had stiffened at the mention of patents. As the evening progressed, Bernard made an unexpected proposal. What if we considered a joint venture? My firm has been developing some interesting applications in quantum cryptography. Combined with your algorithms, we could potentially lock up the entire market before Hayes Industries even enters it. The proposal was intriguing, but Madison knew she needed Sarah's investigative skills to vet all possible angles. Her friend's ability to uncover hidden connections and potential conflicts had saved her from several dubious partnerships in the past. I'm interested, Madison replied carefully, but I'd like to have my team review the technical specifications first. Perhaps we could arrange a more detailed discussion next week. The investors agreed, and as they wrapped up dinner, Madison could sense the energy in the room had shifted. They'd come out of professional obligation, but they were leaving genuinely excited about the possibilities. As Madison gathered her materials, Catherine pulled her aside. Just between us, she whispered, Hayes has been shopping around a surprisingly similar proposal, but her numbers don't add up quite as cleanly as yours. This confirmation of Veronica's parallel efforts didn't surprise Madison, but it reinforced the need to move quickly. She thanked her guests and waited until they had left before allowing herself a moment to process the evening's developments. Standing alone in the private dining room, Madison realized she needed to completely reinvent her approach. The quantum computing venture was just the beginning. She needed to restructure her entire corporate strategy to protect against not just current threats but future ones as well. She pulled out her phone to text Sarah. Need your help. Big changes coming. Breakfast tomorrow. The response came quickly, 7 a.m. I'll bring the coffee and my detective skills. As Madison left the restaurant, she purposely walked past Veronica's table. Their eyes met briefly, and Madison allowed herself a small, confident smile. Let them wonder what she was planning. By the time they figured it out, she'd be 3 steps ahead. Her driver held the car door open, and as she settled into the back seat, Madison already began outlining her next moves. The quantum computing project would need to be accelerated, teams would need to be restructured, and most importantly, she needed to ensure that every step was documented and secured against corporate espionage. The city lights blurred past her window as she headed home, her mind racing with possibilities and potential pitfalls. This wasn't just about beating Veronica anymore. It was about transforming her company into something that neither Veronica nor Jamal could touch, no matter how much inside information they thought they had. Madison's home office buzzed with energy as she and Sarah covered the glass walls with sticky notes and market analysis printouts. The morning sun cast long shadows across their makeshift war room, where cups of coffee sat forgotten among stacks of financial reports. Bernard Walsh's quantum cryptography proposal could be exactly what we need, Sarah said, pinning up another market projection chart. But there's something about the timing that bothers me. Why now? Madison stood back, studying their visualization of potential market trajectories. What did you find in your background check? That's just it, Sarah replied, pulling up documents on her tablet. Walsh's company has been sitting on this technology for months. They didn't move on it until after Veronica started making noise in the quantum space. And here's where it gets interesting. Walsh's son-in-law works for a subsidiary of Hayes Industries. Madison's expression hardened. So either Bernard is trying to play both sides, or Veronica is using him to get inside information about our plans. There's more, Sarah continued, swiping through documents. I've been tracking the investment patterns of all the dinner guests from last night. 3 of them have indirect connections to Hayes Industries through various shell companies. The revelation caused Madison to pause in her pacing. She moved to her desk, pulling up her own files. Then the dinner wasn't just about securing investments. Veronica was gathering intelligence. Exactly. But here's something she doesn't know about, Sarah said, pulling up a profile on her tablet. Alexander Rivers, new money, tech background, completely independent from the old guard. He's been quietly revolutionizing the European market with quantum-adjacent technologies, and he's looking to expand into the U.S. Madison leaned forward, interest peaked. No connections to Hayes Industries? None. He's famously independent. Turned down 3 partnership offers from Veronica last year alone. And Sarah paused for effect. He's arriving in New York next week for a tech conference. A plan began forming in Madison's mind. If we could secure a partnership with Rivers before the conference, it would blindside Veronica completely, Sarah finished. She's so focused on copying your current moves that she won't see you making entirely new ones. Their strategy session was interrupted by an urgent email. Madison's face darkened as she read it. Veronica just announced a press conference for tomorrow morning. She's claiming to have made a breakthrough in quantum computing applications. Sarah quickly pulled up her media contacts. My sources say she's planning to demonstrate a new quantum encryption protocol. She's inviting major tech journalists and industry leaders. She's trying to beat us to market, Madison realized. Even if her technology isn't ready, the announcement alone could spook investors. She turned to the windows, looking out over the city skyline. We need to move faster. But rushing could be exactly what she wants, Sarah cautioned. Remember the buyout? CH fiasco last year? 3 companies rushed their products to market to beat competitors, and all 3 failed FDA approval. Madison nodded, remembering the market chaos that followed. So we let her make her announcement. Let her take the risk of going first. Meanwhile, we quietly meet with Rivers, Sarah suggested. Work out a real partnership based on actual technology, not just market hype. The 2 women spent the next hours refining their strategy, mapping out contingencies, and preparing for various scenarios. Sarah's investigative skills proved invaluable as they dug deeper into market positions and potential allies. There's one more thing, Sarah said hesitantly. That attractive investor you mentioned, Mark Thorne? He's been seen meeting with Veronica 3 times in the past month. Madison felt her stomach tighten. Another potential leak in her organization. Any idea what they discussed? Not yet, but I'm working on it. My contact at the restaurant where they met last says the conversation seemed intense. Not romantic business. As they wrapped up their session, Madison's phone buzzed with a news alert. Veronica had just posted a cryptic tweet. Tomorrow, the future of computing changes forever. Some secrets can't stay hidden. Sarah watched her friend's reaction carefully. She's trying to get under your skin. Make you doubt yourself. I know, Madison replied, her voice steady. But she's forgetting something important. Every time someone's tried to corner me, I've come back stronger. They began cleaning up their workspace, but Madison's mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. She needed to contact Rivers immediately, prepare her team for Veronica's announcement, and most importantly, ensure that her own quantum computing project remained secure. As Sarah gathered her things to leave, she paused at the door. Want me to attend Veronica's press conference tomorrow? I can read between the lines better than most tech journalists. Madison nodded gratefully. Yes, but don't let her spot you. I want to know exactly what she's planning, not just what she's willing to show the public. After Sarah left, Madison stood alone in her office, surrounded by the evidence of their planning session. Tomorrow would be crucial, but for the first time since Jamal's reappearance, she felt truly prepared for what was coming. The Metropolitan Convention Center's main hall buzzed with anticipation. Tech journalists and industry leaders filled the seats, their devices ready to broadcast Veronica's announcement to the world. Madison chose to watch the live stream from her office, surrounded by her core team, while Sarah positioned herself inconspicuously in the back of the hall. On screen, Veronica commanded the stage in a striking white suit, her confidence evident in every gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, today Hayes Industries revolutionizes quantum computing security. She launched into a polished presentation, complete with impressive visualizations and complex technical specifications. Madison noticed Jamal standing at the side of the stage, his expression unreadable as Veronica continued. Our breakthrough in quantum encryption will make current security protocols obsolete. We're calling it Project Sentinel. Sarah's text appeared on Madison's phone. Something's off. The technical specs don't match current quantum capabilities. Either they've made an impossible leap, or they're bluffing. Madison finished under her breath. She turned to her chief technical officer. Analysis? Their claims about quantum coherence times are theoretically impossible with current technology, he confirmed. They're either lying or they've broken the laws of physics. The presentation continued with Veronica taking carefully screened questions from the audience. Then came the moment that made Madison's blood freeze. Veronica gestured to Jamal, inviting him to the podium. As our head of strategic development, Mr. Carter brings unique insights into market implementation, Veronica announced, her smile razor-sharp. His experience with various industry leaders has been invaluable. Jamal stepped forward, his voice steady as he began discussing implementation strategies. But Madison, who knew him better than anyone, caught the slight hesitation in his delivery, the way his hand gripped the podium too tightly. Another text from Sarah. Watch Jamal's body language when discussing the technical specs. He knows something's wrong with their claims. Madison studied him closely. Sure enough, there was a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. She remembered that same tension from years ago, when he tried to hide something that bothered him. The presentation concluded with Veronica announcing immediate private demonstrations for selected investors. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah's messages came rapid fire. Several major investors looking skeptical. Overheard Walsh questioning the coherence times. Veronica headed straight to damage control with Reuters reporter. Madison turned to her team. Give me everything on Project Sentinel. Patent filings, research papers, anything. There's a flaw in their claims, and we're going to find it. Later that afternoon, Madison met with Alexander Rivers in her office. The European tech innovator was younger than she expected, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Impressive show this morning, Rivers commented, accepting a coffee. Though I noticed some creative interpretations of quantum mechanics. Madison smiled. You caught that too? Hayes Industries is promising something that breaks fundamental laws of physics, Rivers stated bluntly. Either they're lying, or they've achieved the impossible. And I don't believe in impossible. Their discussion shifted to practical possibilities for collaboration. Rivers' European innovations complemented Madison's developments perfectly, creating potential for genuine breakthroughs rather than marketing smoke and mirrors. I've had multiple offers from Hayes, Rivers admitted, including one delivered personally by Mr. Carter last month. But I prefer partners who deal in reality, not fantasy. As they outlined potential partnership terms, Sarah texted again, "Major development. Need to meet ASAP." Madison wrapped up her meeting with Rivers, securing a preliminary agreement for collaboration. As he left, she could already imagine Veronica's reaction when she learned she'd lost Rivers to her biggest rival. Sarah arrived minutes later, slightly out of breath. "You need to see this," she said, pulling up documents on her tablet. "I found out why Jamal looked so uncomfortable during the technical presentation. He tried to warn them." "What do you mean?" "Internal emails," Sarah explained, showing her the screen. Jamal sent multiple warnings about the technical claims being unrealistic. Veronica ignored them all. She's gambling that she can fake it until they actually develop the technology. Madison leaned back in her chair, processing this information. So Jamal knew it was a fraud, but went along with it anyway. "There's more," Sarah added hesitantly. "Remember Mark Thorne? Those meetings with Veronica?" He was warning her too. The whole presentation was built on wishful thinking and market manipulation. Madison stood, walking to her window. The city spread out below her, unaware of the corporate drama unfolding in its midst. She had what she needed now: evidence of fraudulent claims, a solid partnership with Rivers, and proof that even Veronica's own people knew their claims were false. The question was, how to use it? The annual Tech Innovation Gala transformed the Natural History Museum into a glittering showcase of power and influence. Under the massive blue whale, suspended from the ceiling, Madison navigated through clusters of industry elite, accepting congratulations on her recently announced partnership with Rivers Technology. She spotted Jamal alone by the dinosaur exhibits, his reflection multiplied in the glass display cases. Without allowing herself to second-guess, she approached him, champagne glass in hand. "Interesting presentation yesterday," Madison said, her voice low enough for privacy, especially the parts that violated quantum mechanics. Jamal turned, his composed expression slipping for just a moment. "Madison, you knew it was impossible," she continued, taking a calculated sip of champagne. "Just like you knew exactly what you were doing 5 years ago when you walked out of my house with those files." "You don't understand what's really happening here," Jamal replied, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Things aren't what they seem." "Then enlighten me," Madison challenged. "Explain how you went from warning Veronica about impossible claims to standing on stage supporting them. Explain how the man who once told me integrity was everything became complicit in corporate fraud." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Sarah, who approached with purposeful speed. "Madison, we have a situation. Veronica's about to what?" Veronica's voice cut through the tension as she joined their group, resplendent in a deep purple gown. "About to announce that Hayes Industries has secured exclusive rights to quantum encryption patents that make your partnership with Rivers obsolete." Madison maintained her composure, though she felt Jamal stiffen beside her. "Patents for technology that doesn't exist? That's a bold strategy, even for you, Veronica." "Oh, but that's where you're wrong," Veronica smiled, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Would you like to know what your trusted friend Jamal has really been doing these past 5 years? The museum's grand hall seemed to fall away as Veronica continued. "While you thought he was just another corporate spy, Jamal was actually developing the very technology we announced. The impossible became possible months ago in our private labs." "That's not true," Sarah interjected. "I've seen the internal emails. You've seen what we wanted you to see." Veronica cut her off. "Jamal's warnings? The skeptical investors? All carefully orchestrated to make our competitors underestimate us. Even you, Madison, fell for it completely." Madison turned to Jamal, searching his face for the truth. His expression had changed, showing a complexity of emotions she hadn't seen since their last night together 5 years ago. "The patents were filed 6 months ago." Jamal finally spoke, his voice heavy. under a subsidiary company name to avoid detection. The technology works, Madison. I know because I created it. The revelation hit Madison like a physical blow. All this time, she thought Jamal had betrayed her for power or money, but he'd actually orchestrated something far more sophisticated. Why? She managed to ask, her voice barely steady. Why the deception? Before Jamal could answer, Veronica interjected again. Because I offered him what you never could, the chance to be more than just the butler who warmed your bed. I saw his potential when you only saw a servant. That's enough, Jamal snapped, surprising both women. You don't know anything about my relationship with Madison. The tension was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. Alexander Rivers had arrived, and he was heading straight for their group with determined purpose. Ms. Hayes, Rivers called out, his accent more pronounced with anger. Would you care to explain why your patent applications contain direct copies of my research team's work? The color drained from Veronica's face as Rivers pulled out his tablet, displaying side-by-side comparisons of technical specifications. Madison watched as the carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Jamal's expression shifted from confidence to confusion, then to something that looked remarkably like betrayal. Veronica, he said slowly, you told me those specifications came from our research team. They did, Veronica insisted, but her voice had lost its earlier certainty. The developments were parallel. The timestamps on the original research prove otherwise, Rivers interrupted. Your patents aren't just similar to my work. They're exact copies, down to the notation style of my lead scientist. Madison felt the pieces clicking into place. Veronica's confidence, Jamal's real role, the elaborate deception. But something still didn't add up. She looked at Jamal, really looked at him, and saw the moment he realized the full extent of Veronica's manipulation. The gala continued around them, but in their corner of the museum, time seemed to stand still as years of lies and manipulation began to unravel. Back in her home office the next morning, Madison attacked her investigation with renewed purpose. Multiple screens displayed patent documents, research papers, and email trails, while Sarah coordinated with Rivers' European legal team via video conference. The technical specifications were stolen piece by piece, Sarah explained, arranging digital evidence on the main screen. Someone with high-level access to Rivers systems extracted the data over several months, disguising it as routine security scans. Madison studied the timestamps, and Jamal really didn't know? The evidence suggests he was working on parallel research, Sarah confirmed. Veronica kept him isolated from the stolen data, using his legitimate work as cover for the intellectual property theft. His warnings about the technology being impossible were based on his own research attempts, not knowing she had a working model stolen from Rivers. Madison leaned back in her chair, processing this information. So when he left 5 years ago, it wasn't just about ambition, Sarah finished. Veronica had approached him with the promise of heading his own research division. She played on his desire to be seen as more than just household staff, knowing his background in quantum physics. The revelation that Jamal held a doctorate in quantum physics had surprised Madison when Sarah uncovered it. He'd never mentioned it during their time together, maintaining the role of the efficient butler despite his qualifications. There's something else, Sarah said, pulling up another document. Remember those meetings between Mark Thorne and Veronica? He wasn't warning her about technical problems. He was trying to blackmail her with evidence of the intellectual property theft. Madison straightened in her chair. And he disappeared from the investor circuit 3 weeks ago. His social media went dark, his office claims he's on extended leave, and his wife filed a missing persons report yesterday. The implications sent a chill down Madison's spine. Give me everything on Thorne's movements before he disappeared. Credit card records, phone logs, security footage. Already on it, Sarah interrupted, but her attention was suddenly drawn to her phone. Madison, Jamal just emailed me. He wants to meet. Says he has proof of something bigger than the patent theft. Madison's first instinct was to refuse, but her business mind recognized the opportunity. Where? The Botanical Gardens. 1 hour. Sarah looked up from her phone with concern. He specifically asked that you come alone. Meanwhile, Sarah's personal life had taken an unexpected turn. The investment banker she'd been seeing, David Chun, had been surprisingly supportive during her divorce proceedings. As she prepared files for Madison's meeting with Jamal, her phone lit up with a message from David. "Need to talk. Something's not right at the firm. Connected to Hayes Industries." Sarah stared at the message, her journalist instincts firing. "Madison," she called out, "I think we need to look into David's investment firm. He's trying to tell me something about Hayes." Madison paused in gathering her things for the meeting with Jamal. "You're David? The one, huh? Inling overseas investments?" "Yes, and his firm has been managing some of Hayes Industries' European accounts." Sarah pulled up more documents, including transactions in the same region as Rivers' research facilities. The pieces were starting to form a larger picture. Madison grabbed her coat, mind racing with possibilities. "Keep digging into those transactions. And Sarah, be careful. After what happened to Thorne." "I know," Sarah nodded, already pulling up financial records. "David's taking a huge risk even reaching out. I'll protect him." As Madison headed for the botanical gardens, Sarah dove deeper into the financial records. What she found made her blood run cold. The transactions formed a complex web of shell companies and hidden transfers, all leading back to one mysterious account in the Cayman Islands. The account name? Carter Global Holdings. Madison's phone buzzed with Sarah's urgent message just as she pulled into the Botanical Gardens parking lot. "Don't meet him alone. Jamal's involved deeper than we thought." The money trail. But Madison was already walking toward the conservatory, where Jamal waited among the exotic flowers, holding a thick manila envelope. The humid air inside the conservatory made Madison's silk blouse cling uncomfortably as she approached Jamal. Towering orchids and dense tropical foliage created a false sense of privacy, though she knew Sarah had already alerted security to her location. "I've received some interesting information about Carter Global Holdings," Madison opened, watching Jamal's reaction carefully. His slight flinch confirmed Sarah's discovery. "That's actually why I asked you here," Jamal replied, gripping the manila envelope tighter. "But it's not what you think. The account wasn't mine. It was set up in my name without my knowledge. By Veronica." Before Madison could respond, her phone buzzed with another urgent message from Sarah. Multiple transfers from Carter Global to offshore accounts. "Last transfer made minutes ago. Get out now. Show me what's in the envelope, Jamal," Madison demanded, maintaining her composure while scanning for exits. Jamal opened the envelope, revealing stacks of documents. Veronica didn't just steal Rivers' research. She's been systematically stealing intellectual property from companies across Europe and Asia. The quantum computing patents were just the tip of the iceberg. "And you expect me to believe you knew nothing about this?" Madison's voice was sharp with skepticism. "I was a fool," Jamal admitted, spreading the documents on a nearby bench. "She kept me focused on legitimate research while using my credentials to access restricted data. Every warning I sent about impossible technology was met with reassurance that breakthroughs were happening in other divisions." Madison examined the documents, recognizing patterns in the data theft that matched what Sarah had uncovered. These transfers, she pointed to a specific page, they matched the dates of major research breakthroughs at competing firms. "Exactly," Jamal confirmed. "But here's what Veronica doesn't know. I've been gathering evidence since I first suspected something was wrong. Every fake patent, every stolen specification, every fraudulent transaction." The conservatory doors opened as Veronica Hayes strode in, flanked by two men in dark suits. "I'm afraid I know exactly what you've been doing, Jamal," she announced, her voice echoing off the glass walls. "Did you really think I wouldn't monitor your activities?" Madison's phone buzzed again. "Police on way. David confirmed money laundering operation. Stall her." "It's over, Veronica," Madison stated firmly. "Rivers has already filed patent infringement suits, and I'm sure these other companies will follow once they learn what you've done." Veronica laughed, the sound harsh in the humid air. "You still don't see the full picture, do you? Why do you think I let Jamal gather all this evidence? Why do you think his nom? He is on all those accounts?" The realization hit Madison just as Jamal took a step back. "You're setting him up to take the fall. Corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, money laundering," Veronica listed casually. "All traced back to Carter Global Holdings. The brilliant but bitter ex-Butler. using his former position to steal secrets and enrich himself. That won't work, Jamal protested. I have proof of your involvement, proof that was accessed using your credentials on servers registered to your shell company. Veronica cut him off. Face it, Jamal, you're the perfect scapegoat. The betrayed employee seeking revenge, the ambitious servant overreaching his position. Madison moved closer to Jamal, her mind racing. Except for one thing. You didn't count on Mark Thorne, did you? Before he disappeared, he sent evidence to multiple sources. Veronica's composure slipped slightly. Thorne was a liability who chose to take an extended vacation. The police might be interested in checking the transaction records from your Cayman account to his private jet, Madison pressed. Especially since Sarah has already traced the money trail. The sound of sirens in the distance caused everyone to tense. Veronica's guards shifted uncomfortably. This isn't over, Veronica warned, but her confident facade was cracking. You have no idea how deep this goes, how many people are involved. Actually, Sarah's voice came from behind a large palm, recording device in hand. I think we have a pretty good idea. She stepped out, accompanied by 2 FBI agents. Would you like to explain about those overseas transactions now, Ms. Hayes? The Metropolitan Museum's Temple of Dender provided a dramatic backdrop for the annual Technology Innovation Awards. Glass walls reflected the evening lights, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere as New York's tech elite gathered for what would become an unforgettable night. Madison stood at the edge of the reflecting pool, watching Veronica work the room with increasingly desperate energy. In the weeks since the conservatory confrontation, the carefully constructed facade of Hayes Industries had begun to crumble. Everything's in place, Sarah whispered, joining Madison. The FBI has the complete financial records. David's testimony about the money laundering operation is locked in, and Rivers' legal team has distributed the patent evidence to all affected companies. Madison nodded, her attention drawn to Jamal, who stood near the temple columns, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. And the recordings? Ready to play at your signal. The tech journalists are already here, and the live stream is set up. Sarah paused, checking her phone. There's something else. Mark Thorne's wife just received a message from him. Coordinates for a location in the Cayman Islands. The FBI is moving in now. The evening's formal proceedings began with the usual speeches and awards. Madison noticed Veronica growing increasingly agitated as she checked her phone repeatedly. Whatever news she was waiting for clearly wasn't coming. Ladies and gentlemen, the MC announced, we now welcome Veronica Hayes to present the Innovation Leadership Award. As Veronica took the stage, Madison caught Jamal's eye and gave a subtle nod. He moved quietly toward the audiovisual control booth. Technology leadership is about vision, Veronica began, her voice steady despite her obvious tension. About seeing possibilities where others see limitations. The large screens behind her suddenly came to life, displaying financial records, email exchanges, and surveillance footage. The audience gasped as evidence of systematic intellectual property theft played out before them. I believe you were talking about vision, Madison said, stepping forward. Like your vision of building an empire on stolen research? Or perhaps your vision of framing Jamal Carter for your crimes? Veronica's composure finally shattered. You have no idea what you're doing. The people behind this are already in custody, Sarah interrupted, holding up her phone displaying breaking news. The FBI raid in the Caymans just uncovered everything. Mark Thorne is alive and talking. It's over, Veronica. The crowd erupted in chaos as FBI agents entered the temple, moving purposefully toward Veronica. But she had one last card to play. Madison, she called out, her voice carrying across the room. Ask Jamal why he really left 5 years ago. Ask him about the real reason he chose Hayes Industries. Madison turned to Jamal, who had moved to stand beside her. His expression was pained but resolute. I left because I discovered evidence of corporate espionage within your company, he revealed. But not from you, from board members working with Hayes Industries. I joined Veronica to investigate from the inside, to protect you. Everything else, the warnings, the patent concerns, was part of gathering evidence. He's telling the truth, Sarah confirmed, pulling up more documents on her tablet. The board members in question were arrested an hour ago. Jamal has been working with federal investigators for 5 years. The truth of their shared past suddenly shifted into new focus for Madison. Every interaction, every warning, every seemingly betrayal had been part of a deeper plan to protect both her and her company. As the FBI led Veronica away, the stolen patents and financial crimes were just the beginning of the charges she would face. The investigation had uncovered a vast network of corporate espionage and financial fraud that would shake the entire tech industry. Sarah's phone buzzed one final time. David's case is solid. The evidence of money laundering through Hayes Industries will put Veronica and her conspirators away for decades. Madison turned to Jamal, seeing him clearly for the first time in years. 5 years, she said softly. You carried this burden alone for 5 years. Not alone, he corrected, glancing at Sarah. Your friend here figured it out months ago. She's been helping coordinate with the FBI since she discovered the connection between Hayes Industries and the board members. Sarah smiled. Someone had to keep an eye on both of you stubborn fools. As the chaos of the evening settled into the beginning of a long legal process, Madison found herself standing with Jamal by the reflecting pool. The Temple of Dender loomed behind them, a testament to enduring strength and hidden depths. So, Madison said, what happens now? Jamal looked at her, years of secrecy and protection finally lifting from his shoulders. Now we rebuild. Together, if you'll let me explain everything. Madison considered all they had been through, the pain, the deception, the ultimate truth of his sacrifice. I think, she said finally, we have a lot to talk about. Sarah watched them from a distance, sending one final text to David. Mission accomplished. The truth finally won. The night ended not with an award ceremony, but with the promise of restoration, of trust, of relationships, and of justice in an industry built on innovation rather than theft. Madison's empire stood stronger than ever, built on a foundation of truth that not even Veronica's elaborate deceptions could shake. The story concludes with the understanding that sometimes the greatest betrayals hide the deepest loyalties, and that truth, however painful its journey, eventually finds its way to light.